In the Video Gamers Oasis on YouTube presents podcast mini-series The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Visual Companion, My Reading and Commentary. Hello again, welcome back to Video Gamers Oasis presents The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Visual Companion, My Reading, the mini podcast that we've started last week. We're going to be doing this every week now. Incidentally, it's Saturday, the same day that the previous episode was released. So if you haven't already, please send some likes for The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien, great epic mythologist. He created a lore of a fantasy story that has inspired so many video games like Legend of Zelda, Final Fantasy, so many games like the Dungeons and Dragons series, Conan the Barbarian, so many epic fantasy stories that owe a lot to Tolkien and his mythology. Obviously, there were fantasy writers before him at his time, but none like Tolkien. His stories are truly timeless, and you can draw a lot of wisdom from the pages as well as the movies based on him, preferably the ones I've been studying on, based on Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings series. There's a lot of lessons of heroism and self-sacrifice and nobility and duality of good and evil. These are common themes that are in many fantasy stories and great mythology stories as well. So make sure to subscribe, click the notification bell to Video Gamers Oasis if you haven't already. Previously in my reading, we've been studying we studied pages 5 to pages 7. We learned about the history of the Lord of the Rings. We learned about the Rings of Power, the last alliance of elves and men. So a bit of a mythology of the mythology, a bit of a history of the characters and how far back they go, the origin of the ring, how Sauron came to be. Now we're moving on to a new chapter, and there's a series of chapters, sort of a subheading here, called The Free Peoples of Middle-earth, right here. And the first section we're going to study is Hobbits, and then we're going to study about Baggins. There's actually a series of chapters just on Hobbits alone, and we're going to break this up into 2 parts, because there's a lot of information to learn about the Hobbits. So I got my reading glasses because it helps me to focus, and I got my nice brass magnifying glass, and let's begin our study of this book. We're going to learn about the free peoples of Middle-earth. Starting with page 8, Hobbits. Here we go. In the northwestern corner of Middle-earth lies the peaceful agricultural region known as the Shire. And in that part of the Shire, called the West Farthing, beyond the East Road, is found the sleepy village of Hobbiton, a quaint rural settlement inhabited by an ancient, unobtrusive folk known as Hobbits, or Hole Dwellers. For hundreds of years, they have made a good living in the rich earth of the Shire, and while the earliest of their number may well have lived in simple holes and tunnels, most now dwell in houses and have been built into the grassy hillsides. Houses that are low-lying, rounded, and comfortably appointed, much like the hobbits themselves, who stand barely 4 feet tall and like to eat as much and as often as they can. Daily hobbit meals include breakfasts second breakfast, elevenses, luncheon, afternoon tea, and supper. Supplemented with plenty of snacks in between. They do like to eat, don't they? They are a cheerful, settled, well-ordered, and clannish folk, priding themselves on their plenty, their ancestry, and their good common sense, and are therefore most unadventurous by nature, preferring the prospect of a good smoke of pipe weed with their feet up in front of the fire at the Green Dragon Inn to gallivanting around the world. Brackets with the notable exception of one, Bilbo Baggins. And we'll learn about Bilbo Baggins later on in this book. Briefly look at this illustration here of the nice Shire. Very peaceful, relaxing place. And you see the houses here. A little bit close up of the houses. The houses are built into the hills of the Shire. They're almost like caves, but they're very beautifully furnished inside. And they have brick walls and wood furnishings. Very beautiful, peaceful, rural dwellers. And we have another photograph illustration of some hobbits and their market here. We have some couple of a male and a female walking around with some vegetables in their basket. Ladies selling some wares. I guess she's selling leatherware, but maybe even weaponry. There's a lady on the far right corner selling fish. She's a fish marketer. And in the background we see some cows, Jersey cows, I guess. They provide milk to the people. Maybe even meat, who knows. But it's a nice, very peaceful farm-like country. They are very much a farming folk. Moving on to page 9, we're going to read the rest of the paragraph. Hobbiton remains an inward-looking an inward-looking and complacent, as it has been for generation on generation, a place where Hobbit folk can raise their children in safety, grow vegetables and crops, tend their flower gardens and their animals, and gather mushrooms for dinner, blissfully ignorant of the dark shadows that even now are encroaching from the east, from Mordor. Although activity on the highways has increased in recent years, and strangers are more frequently seen on the, last paragraph on the page, on the outskirts of the Shire. Most hobbits remain determinedly unaware that the peace they enjoy is being fiercely protected by the good offices of the wizard Gandalf, brackets, whom they associate more with fireworks than true wizardry, and the Rangers of the North. For Gandalf, the Shire represents a pocket of charm and innocence in an increasingly tainted world. Good-hearted and generous of spirit, hobbits are a folk worth saving from the horrors of the Dark Lord's rule. So there we have a brief synopsis of the Shire and the peaceful hobbit folk who dwell there. Moving on to the next page, on page 10, we're going to read a final chapter here. Hobbits, and we're going to learn about Bag End. And there's some beautiful illustrations we're going to look at in just a few minutes. First of all, let's read the paragraph on page 10. Bag End. Hobbits stand less than 4 feet tall, and their houses are equally compact and rounded. Classic features of Hobbit architecture include circular doors and windows, curved walls, and beams. Their owners set much store by pleasant furnishings and local craftsmanship, specializing particularly in finely turned and polished wood, and I'm having a little spit on my glass here. Polished wood and in skillful cabinet making. Hobbit holes are devoted to comfort and hospitality, containing, as they do, well-stocked larders, homely hearths, and a ready welcome. Bilbo Baggins' house, Bag End, is a fine example of the type. And here's a close-up of Bag End. His preferably, I think we're talking about Bilbo Baggins' house. Here's a photograph of his house. And the inside is a very nice furnished circular doorway, some chairs, a lot of books and scrolls around the floor. A little bit messy, but still very homey and comfortable. He's got some shelves. I don't know if that's the kitchen, with some bottles in the background on shelves, food and condiments. And there we have a photograph of the outside of Bilbo Baggins' Bag End house. Again, it's a very beautiful kind of pastoral hobbit hole. There's the doorway here in the center, and around is lots of grass and flowers, and then there's just some steps leading to the doorway and a gate. There's even a bench in front of the doorway and a lamp, or it could be a birdhouse, possibly. Very relaxing, very peaceful kind of environment. You could almost say it's like a white picket fence house. In this case, it's a hobbit hole. So there you have it. That's all we have the time for this reading. Tune in next episode. We're going to be studying the next chapter in this series of Hobbits. We're going to learn about Bilbo Baggins, and we're going to learn about Frodo Baggins, two important hobbits in the story of the Lord of the Rings. On pages 12, 11, we got 14 and 15. So make sure to tune in next time, next episode, next week. We're going to gradually go through each of these chapters, two by two. We'll read two at a time, and we're going to put a lot of effort into individualizing these chapters so we don't rush through them. We want to really soak up and digest all the richness of these characters and the fantasy world that they live in. I'm Jeremy. This is Video Gamers Oasis YouTube channel. This is a special podcast mini-series, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Visual Companion, my reading. I thank you for taking the time to watch me. Send some likes and send some love if you enjoy Lord of the Rings, epic mythology. And if you want to see more of these readings in the future, please let me know in the comments. Subscribe, click the notification bell on Video Gamers Oasis. And I wish you a happy weekend for September 2024. This is actually September the 14th, 2024 on Saturday. So I'll be back next Saturday with another episode. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.